Lord of the Rings Shadows over Middle-earth. Yes, today on the Cardboard Herald, we are taking a look at the latest exit title that is a Tolkienian Middle-earth theme, which is fitting because A, I'm a huge Tolkien nut, and B, well, we've covered some exit stuff and other narrative puzzle mystery doodads on this channel in the past, so we are getting into this, but this is going to be just kind of like a light review because I don't want to get into any of the spoilers, neither for the story nor for any of the puzzles themselves. So I'm going to give you some basic impressions. Exit, if you are not familiar with this series, it's a one and done puzzle game in which you're going to have all these different puzzles within that's going to take you through a narrative, hopefully successfully completing it within a time limit or completing it just to the very end to your satisfaction. And all of the pieces in here can be manipulated, torn, cut, and otherwise messed with, which is part of the one and done nature. Not only do you know the solutions, but the components themselves are going to be destroyed as a product of you successfully seeing your way through. Now, this one is, of course, themed to Middle-earth. The basic premise of the story is that you and other players are other hobbits, you know, like Fatty Bulger and other hobbits who exist but are not often adapted into other media, though you are just no-name hobbits, and you are commissioned, consigned, you are bequeathed a quest by Gandalf to aid the company as they are doing the events of the Lord of the Rings. It is cool. I like it a lot better that you aren't actually like Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin, and you aren't actually doing the stuff that they were doing. You are somehow participating in the events that follow the progress of the main story. As a presentation, yeah, it does the thing. You have the highlights that you expect to see, the notable characters. It doesn't really interfere with the canon of the story, so it doesn't make you go like, oh, this is impossible. There's no way this could have happened, even if it does, to a degree, suspend disbelief in a fantasy adventure. And it is beautifully rendered by the artist Mihailo Dimitrevsky, is how I believe it's pronounced, who has done so much board game artwork to this point that he's become a veritable institution. And so that was a big part of the appeal, the lavish illustrations in this cartoony sort of caricature style. Now, as an exit game, well, it does the thing. You have the series of puzzles and you're not supposed to look ahead on the adventure. I particularly like how the clue system and the solution system was handled with decks of cards. It's an elaborate sequence that I don't want to necessarily get into too much because it would spoil it, but I think the system for finding out if you have the correct solution and then progressing on to the next thing is handled very elegantly and very well. And the hint system, which does dock you points if you take a bunch of hints, is also very nice. It progressively goes to the next thing, on each of the individual puzzles, which there are many in this adventure, ultimately coming to one conclusive puzzle that kind of ties everything together nicely. Now, let's talk about the puzzles themselves. This box says playtime 1 to 2 hours, which we were 3 people who are seasoned adventurers. We all know our Lord of the Rings, and we all know our narrative puzzle mysteries. And it took us about 2.5 hours to see it through. So it was a little bit longer than I really would have wanted. And I think a big part of that is that some of the puzzles were more obtuse than I wanted them to be. Like a puzzle, when you're solving it, should feel like you aren't getting it, you aren't getting it, and then as soon as it starts to come together, then it just clicks and works cohesively. And I would say about half the puzzles in here were that, and they were clever and inventive and interesting, and it was like, aha, I see what you did there, and it was exciting to execute upon it at that point. But there were a couple where it was not really clicking, or we knew what the game wanted us to do, but manipulating it just was like beating our heads against the wall. And it was a bummer that in those instances, we had to go through the hints, and we'd go through one hint, and it's like, yeah, we actually already knew all that information on that hint, And then we'd go through the next hint, and then yeah, we got through all the information on that hint, and it's the next hint after that that we needed help with. But of course, being fair game players, we docked ourselves the points for the hints that we revealed. I think a big part of it is that no one thinks exactly alike, and some puzzles that are easy for some people are extremely difficult or obtuse for others. So I don't think that it was necessarily problematic, but it wasn't exactly as easy of a flow as I expected or hoped that it might be. But ultimately, as an exit game, we had fun. And while it's not the best narrative puzzle mystery game that we've played by far, it was also far from the worst. It was kind of middle of the pack. And as Lord of the Rings fans who, wanted to see this world realized, but in a different way, and were kind of a little bit leery about it just kind of dispersing with the lore, it was great that it felt immersive and tangential to the overall adventure. So, that provided a bit of levity to it. And so we put on our Lord of the Rings records and listened to the music and had at it and had a great time. So end result, if you like these types of games and you like the Lord of the Rings, it's pretty good. If you don't like Lord of the Rings, I don't know that this is really going to do it for you. The puzzles are fine. You don't need to know the canon in order to complete them, but it's not really going to scratch any amazing itch, and there's probably better games that thematically are suited for you. And if you don't like these sort of really heady puzzle mysteries, then I think that this is going to be a bit of a challenge, and there's plenty of other Lord of the Rings tabletop gaming that you could get up to. But if you like the both of them, which we do, and you don't mind a one-and-done adventure, then this is totally a suitable way to spend the evening with some Hobbitus friends. And that's our review. But let us know, what is your favorite Lord of the Rings or Tolkien-themed game, and what is your favorite narrative puzzle mystery of all time? We want to hear about it in the comments below. Oh, jeez. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, and thanks for being an awesome community. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald.